Hi everyone, this is Bridget, and today I wanted to talk about thanks and giving, because there is so much one to be thankful for every day. And this is a side note from the actual holiday in America, which is weird, that an actual gratitude ceremony for life is placed on top of the graves of mass genocide of other peoples, which is kind of the unconsciousness that's the underlying nature of the American culture. And I want to talk about that today because really we're at this precipice as a culture as well as a humanity, because the American culture and Western culture has such hold on the rest of the world with how much we create and put out, and the technologies and the story and the narratives through Hollywood. There's a lot of momentum that we have as a culture, and it's really important to keep that in check, because right now in our world, and especially in America, it's like, oh my gosh, like Trump and everything that's happening, and people are going crazy, and there's a lot of like fear, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and you might be feeling that. And it's really ushering us to look at what I'm going to be talking about right now, which is this divide between these two archetypal aspects of ourselves, which is the native and which is the kind of conqueror, I guess you could say. And I am very privileged to be white and privileged to be a woman in this particular incarnation, and I know like what that comes with, and that's why I share this with the ultimate humility. And in other lives I've been natives, and if anything I have a bias towards native culture and native peoples in this life. Since I was a little girl, I always kind of knew that there was something much more on track with that. So I honor what everyone is going through in their own storylines of this life. So we've all been the perpetrator. We've all been the victim. We've all been the ones that have taken over other lands, and we've all been the ones that have been taken over. And when we can realize that, then it can kind of go back to neutral and go back to a place of grander observation, so we can move forward with true consciousness and not unconsciousness. So in this place, as for instance, this idea of Thanksgiving is around, it always brings me back to my Native American heritage. My great-grandfather was a Native American, Ute blood, and ironically, all my Mormon ancestors took over Utah, and now the Utes are just like on a small reservation, and people don't even know that that's where that whole thing came from. And this time always brings me back to the spirit of them, the spirit of the Native Americans, which is so profound and so spirited. And no matter what part of the world you're watching this from, this is a collective story. I mean, it's playing out in a really big way in America right now, but it's cosmic. It has a cosmological heritage coming all the way from Orion. This play out of war and conquering actually incarnated into a lot of the souls in the Western world, from Europe to America. And that is the Orion energy that's playing out. And as we know, a lot of the native cultures happen to have more of an origin from Pleiades and from different places. And so you've got this dualistic play out as well that's beyond this planet, coming into this sphere, trying to play itself out, trying to balance itself out, and through incarnation after incarnation, swapping back and forth. And so right now, no matter what side of the story you're on, it really needs to come back to neutrality and going, okay, what does work? And this goes for the Aboriginal cultures in Australia. This goes to Africa. This goes all around the world, this story. Really, the message I want to bring through today is bringing light, shedding light on the psycho-spiritual disease, which the Native Americans called Wetiko, or in a more derogatory sense, what the Hawaiians call the white people, which is haole, which means no breath. So there's this theme of psychosis and death upon the Caucasian, upon the soul. But the thing is it's gone past white, because this cultural craziness has gone to all cultures around the world with different technologies and such. And so even as we usher into the age, if you guys have seen the AI stuff, like that's on, like that's coming alive, literally, artificial intelligence, and where the consciousness of that technology is being born from is the Western mind. And so it's one of these things that as we get into these heightened technologies, going back into consciousness is the true source of where we can course correct and cleanse everything that we've done as a humanity, and we can really start over. And there are absolute benefits to progression, and there are also so many things that we can learn from the native cultures. And I think one of the reasons that this disease has wiped out a lot of the native culture and the native peoples is because that had the true wisdom, the true magic, and when that could be alive, the other thing couldn't exist. And so it's a real antidote, like this native flower, this native lineage that goes all the way back to the stars, in the land, in the ancestors, is the antidote to this other psychosis that wants to take over this aspect of ourselves. As you're watching this, tuning into both of those parts of ourselves, the parasite that lives within us and the native spirit that wants to flow and teach us and talk to us, because both live within us. And when we can feed one rather than the other, that's when we can come back into balance. And so in that space of listening, you know, it's funny because it goes to a very physical level with actually like the parasites from the sugars and like the suppression and like the liver and the anger that plays out with all of the different alcohol and stuff that's going on. So it's interesting that like our physical manifestations, even the synthetic lights and the Wi-Fi's feed the parasites, which then feed this psychology. So we're seeing how this happens, and it's infiltrated into all the different parts of Western culture. Thus, I want to get into the antidote. And it feels uncomfortable at first because the ego and this ulterior motive of the Western mind disease doesn't want it to happen. And it's something that almost feels foreign because it's been far away from us for quite some time. This remembrance of home, this remembrance of who we are, this remembrance of lineage. And the true solution is in listening, and is getting to a place to be able to hear again, to hear the land speaking to us. Oh boy, if I get into that. To hear the land speaking to us and to tell us what she needs, because not only will humanity fall, but the earth can't make it either. And I know that I'm speaking from this kind of like, I guess, more negative perspective right now, but ultimately I live, and what I'm doing right now is bridging back to where I actually inhabit, which is this honoring of spirit, honoring of the native indigenous ways. So I'm bringing anyone or any part of your consciousness, any part of my consciousness that is still kind of like over here in the Western camp, you know, being like, come on over. And so in that space, coming back into home, coming back into the mother of ourselves, of who we truly are. And so how do we do this? Well, we go back to some of the native ways, and that doesn't mean that we lose the technology. It just means that we reconnect in a way that's truly soulful, that's really with breath, to then bring that consciousness and insert it into our conscious intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. It's conscious intelligence. So really kind of going back to go forward, going back onto the earth and feeling her, feeling the gravity to understand anti-gravity. And I know that I talk about this a lot, but it's really about coming back into harmony and coming back into wholeness with our lands and being really with it as much as possible. And this is one of kind of the confusing things as I've gotten to Hawaii. I'm like, I don't really want to do videos. I want to be immersed with the land. And this place is teaching me so much already. And I can hear the whispers of the ancestors of this space teaching me, telling me, talking to me, sharing how I can carry on some of the things that got left behind or wiped out, and really honoring and acknowledging that the native peoples in a lot of these places are still there, and they're still working to fight for the rights of Earth and for their own rights, and really being aware of what's going on and supporting them as much as possible, because in supporting them, it's supporting us, and it's supporting this whole idea that we're talking about, which is actually taking care of the spirits that are taking care of the spirit of everything. So being aware of those things that are going on and supporting as much as you can in any way. The original Hawaiians who were here were sustainable and self-sufficient for 1,000 years without outside contact. They needed nothing. And now, particularly on Maui, 5% of the food that the people eat come from the island. 95% is shipped in from the mainland. Psychotic, right? You know, and then in America, it's like we can't drink from the rivers anymore, like all these different things. And so seeing how that manifests in the land and how we take care of ourselves shows where the mindset is at. And coming back into harmony is just going to be critical. And so really, in the end, in the beginning, is to get to a place within yourself where you feed that good bacteria, where you feed the spirit, where you feed the breath, where you feed the soul, and to pay attention, kind of like I was talking about in my last content video, to those, to that information, to that content, to that stream source of certain information. Is it parasitic? Is it something that's feeding fear? Is it something that's feeding this disease? Or is it something that's feeding your spirit? Is it something that's feeding your soul? And that's gonna be huge. It is everything. And it's one of those things that really can't just be done on the computer, navigating between certain things you do or on your day-to-day, drive to the grocery store. It's a holistic lifestyle, cultural, revolutionary change where we go back to the earth, where we feel it again so that we can hear it, so that we can hear her, so that we can hear ourselves, to truly know what the next steps are to take. And at least that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm feeling called to do. So as much as you can do that, and I know that there's a lot of constraints in our matrix world to be able to just live, but as much as you can, to bring and let space into that part of your consciousness and honor it above all else, because even looking at this holiday, it's like Thanksgiving with this thanks, which is good because people are into gratitude on that day, but it's on the gravestones of what we've done before, which is insane. And then the next day is Black Friday. So it's like the same energy that was like, I'm going to consume this land, this country, these people, no matter like what it takes, whether that's taking over Africa, whether that's taking over Australia, these different lands. It's like, I'm going to consume it. We're still doing it. It's like this faux thanks But then we're having this big feast where we just like stuff ourselves and over consume. And then Black Friday is this day where we continue to consume. And then our focus is skewed at this time, where in actuality, like this winter solstice, a time to reflect, a time to die to these aspects of ourselves, a time to be reborn, is continuing on in chaos and buying and consumerism and just like frazzled nature. And just really paying attention to this over this next season, over this next few weeks, how you can go in, how you can go deeper in, and remember that it is a time of internal reflection during this winter season. And I understand that warmth and happiness and joy and celebration are so needed, or extra needed, in our lives and culture, and time off. And so definitely cherish that, and be aware too of what that comes with and how that was designed, and going beyond it and really tuning into the rhythm of nature, and tuning into the rhythm of what you need at this time. So that's my riff on that subject. I know it can be incredibly touchy, and it is, and it's the story of our times, and it's something that we can reset. And I'm even more presently aware of its magnitude, just having moved to Hawaii, having these islands be taken over just over 100 years ago, kind of prompted by Christian missionaries of all people. And then just completely taken over. So it was even quicker than some of the places on the mainland. So in the spirit of that, wherever you are around the world, honoring the land that you get to be on. I mean, somehow in this incarnational dynamic, your soul has landed you on that particular land space, and you are now steward of it. And so really, really cherishing that, because there's others that aren't there because you're there. And so what can you do for that land space? What can you do for the culture there? How can you bring it back into harmony? And when we start asking ourselves these questions and acting upon those solutions of the whispers that we hear from the ones that walked before us and from our souls, from the future, we will change the world. So see how that feels. And I just wish you all the best. And we'll continue this story and this narrative and redirecting it in a new way. So thanks for watching. If you like videos like this, like and subscribe. And if you felt there was something useful in it, share it. Thanks.